Hello everyone, welcome back. Conan Exploits here with another video, and today we are picking up where we left off. In the last video we looked at basically how to set up a VirtualBox system, how to install a VirtualBox, and how to download one. And today essentially what we are looking at is setting up the UFW, which is the short form of Uncomplicated Firewall. This is a firewall that originated on Ubuntu platform, but again this is Linux, so accessibility to all other Linux distributions is quite easy. So I will show you how to run this on Kali Linux, how to set it up, how to scan it, how to check if there is a firewall detection running in the specific network that you are targeting, and so much more in our series of NMAP. So while this boots up, basically look at what UFW is all about. UFW is not really different from something like IP tables, but the real difference now comes in some of the key things and how you can do these key things. For example, it's much more easy for beginners. It's rather straightforward, no complicated commands. Again, this is a firewall that you can use on your host machines. You can use this on servers, and just like IP tables, you can block incoming traffic from, say, specific IP addresses, specific networks, traffic going into specific ports, traffic coming in through specific services like HTTP, HTTPS, SSH, Telnet. You can block so much, and it's quite easy to approach this network, to set it up. Another thing you need to understand that you have subnets in your network. IP tables can do this very well, but even in a guru, at the end of the day, sometimes with IP tables it's quite easy to mess it up. So for beginners, it's always advisable for you to begin at an easy platform, and that is why the UFW comes in. And again, it's in the name, it's uncomplicated. It's quite easy, quite straightforward in how you can achieve certain things. Apologies for that one, my Linux machine was acting up a little bit, but now it's okay, so we can go forward. So one of the key things you need to make sure that you have done in your network setup when you're setting up UFW is to make sure that you have the latest updates, because this is very critical. You don't want to start installing new applications or new packages in your Linux distro without making sure that it's up to date, because this once in a while might introduce some conflicts. Not always, but it's highly recommended. So while this sets up, I'm just quickly going to zoom into this so that we can look at that. I'm going to go into my super user account, and the next thing we are going to do is set up updates. Let's just look quickly if you have any pending updates or any updates available. Sorry for that. We are going to check up if there are any updates available. If there are updates available, they will be made available to you. They will be downloaded, they will be installed. If you are on Fedora, just replace the apt with DNF or YAM, depending on whatever version you are on. For Windows users, this is not really necessary. Windows automates how you install your updates. So the next thing we're going to do, just to make sure that we can tell whether or not there is firewall running in that platform, the next thing we need to do is just check the status of UFW. So it's simply typing in UFW status. It tells you that command is not found, so that means you need to install it. So now that we know we do not have a running firewall, the next thing we can sensibly do is try to verify that our traffic is not getting filtered. So switching back to my native operating system, which is Parrot OS. Sorry for that. So what I'm going to do here is simply check my network. I'm going to discover any applications running here, any OS boxes. Coming back here, do a network discovery using the IP address of the target machine. is 27. So I can cancel my net discover. I can clear this up. The basics, try to ping it, check if there's communication. If there is communication, then we know that we are solid and we can go ahead. Perfect. There's a clear ping, so the next thing we can do is just run a simple NMAP scan of the same. And in this case, notice that I'm using SA. What SA does is it's checking for acknowledgement. So essentially what this means, if there is a firewall, we will not receive resets, and it will tell you. By simply adding reason, it will tell you if there is a firewall running on the other side. So if there's a firewall running on the other side, then you know that you need to be more careful in whatever you're doing in that specific server. You don't want to be raising red flags. Yes, it might be your own server you're testing out. So if you have configured certain ports, you have denied traffic at certain ports, and you go to your other machine to test the network, you need to check acknowledgement. If you are receiving acknowledgement from all ports, then it means you have not configured your firewall well, and this is where UFW comes in. It's pretty easy, it's pretty straightforward, as you'll see in the next coming minutes. So running that, we realize that adding the reasons bit tells you that all 1000 ports have been scanned and they are unfiltered because of 1000 resets. What essentially this tells you, at this host machine or at this server, there's no firewall running. So the next thing to do now is come back to our host machine, and we are going to install UFW. I have to get install UFW. It's a pretty small package. Once installed, you'll just notice that it takes up very little space, and by default, even after installing it, it doesn't really run. You need to activate it. So we'll again come back here. You see it's successfully installed. Let's clear that. Let's go back to our native machine. Check again, they are still unfiltered. So now that we have seen how to install the Uncomplicated Firewall, how do you activate it? Simply typing in UFW Status tells you that it's inactive. So now we need to enable it. And this is something that you can easily run on any server, any host machine. And you see, once enabled, it tells you that it will always run at startup. So if you are configuring your server, you know that for a fact, the moment you set it up, you don't need to come back over and over to start it up again anytime your server reboots. This is once and for all, unless you decide to reset your machine or reset the firewall. So now that it's running, we can look at UFW status numbered. We just see that it's active. So what does this really mean? We have activated it, but we haven't really passed any specific commands. So for us to be able to understand what is happening in this firewall, we ideally need to go back to our native machine, our host machine in this scenario. Try again. What's the default status of the UFW firewall? Does it come with some ports or with some services pre-configured to be filtered, or does it still remain in the initial condition it met your system at and allow you to communicate or configure things further as you go forward? And in this scenario, you notice that once the UFW firewall was started up, your server or your target machine, all ports are filtered. And simply looking at this, looking back at this, you realize that the moment you sent an acknowledgement request, you ask for a reason, it tells you they are filtered because of 1,000 responses. No responses. Just to look at the real difference with or when you don't ask for a reason, what happens? Does it tell you why they are unfiltered? Does it tell you why they are filtered? Let's minimize that one. So now you see the real difference. In this one it tells you they are filtered, in this one it tells you they are filtered, but it doesn't provide a reason why does it conclude that these ports are filtered? So the next thing we can do, coming back to our server machine, let's clear this up, go to UFW, and we set default allow incoming traffic. Yep, so it has changed that profile. Let's allow outgoing traffic. So in this scenario, ideally you are just telling it allow everything, you know. And let's look at the same with reasons, and you notice that it switches back to unfiltered. Why? We've received 1,000 resets. So let's clear this up. Coming back here, let's say for example I don't want anyone accessing this machine through HTTP. I'm going to clear this up, and I'm going to tell it UFW deny HTTP. That has been updated. Let's also deny, you know, TCP. And let's try deny SSH services. Let's clear that. Let's list out the status or UFW, and you notice that port 80 is TCP. That's why it did not allow me to enter the code again or the command again. And I have denied SSH, I have denied port 80. So now what kind of results are we expecting to find back when we scan the same network? We're expecting to see that a number of ports will definitely give resets and others will not give resets. So it tells you that it has received 998 resets, which means 998 ports do not have a firewall running on them. But it tells you that this port and this port provided no response, which means they are filtered. And as a pen tester, if you are checking the security of your network, the moment you find that it is filtered, now you know there's a firewall running in there. You might decide to pursue that rabbit, but this is not recommended because most times it's a dead end. If you do not know what firewall is running on your target machine or your target server, then you are going nowhere. So this is one of the key things as a security person you need to understand. When you are setting up a server, you need to know what firewall you are choosing, how you wish to enforce your rules, and how you wish to translate this into your IP tables. Now, I'll be looking into IP tables at a later video, but the whole essence of this video is to check from an NMAP perspective, how can you detect if there's a firewall running on the other side, and how can you tell which services have a firewall running. So coming back to our target machine, let's simply try deleting the port 80, you know, the command on port 80. Let's say UFW allow HTTP. That rule has been added. Let's come back to our system and let's try scanning again and see the difference. It tells them now 999 unfiltered ports because we've allowed port 80 traffic, but we are still denying port 22. And to confirm that, if you switch back to your server, list out your statuses, you realize that port 80 is allowed. It's allowed, but port 22 is denied. So there is a way to delete it directly from the table by simply typing in UFW delete, delete 1. As long as it's numbered, you know, you can delete the command, delete that, yes. And let's list it out again just so you can see the difference. This is gone, but this is still left. So how do we delete that? You can come back, choose delete 2. So again, simply deleting that doesn't affect your firewall because you have already allowed port 80 traffic, which means whether or not it's allowed in the table, it's still there, you know, because you haven't set a specific rule for that port. So essentially it's allowed. If we list out the same, just so you can notice the difference, if we list out the same and delete 1 and 2 in this scenario, what happens is the rule is deleted, and also the firewall that is running specifically targeting that port is also deleted. clear this up. Let's just let it up again. Numbered, it's active, but there's no specific port being targeted, as you've noticed once you send an acknowledgement request again from your scanning machine. In the next video, we'll be going a little bit more in depth to track the traffic. We'll be looking at Wireshark, what it offers, how you can use it to monitor traffic within your network as a network administrator. And also in NMAP, we are going to go further in depth now in trying to scan this remote machine, trying to get what specific services are running there. And this is why I had started out by showing you how to set up a virtual machine, because you do not want to be practicing on a machine that you do not have exclusive access to, on a machine that you do not have permissions to access, or do some brute forcing activities. But in this scenario, this is perfectly legal, and as we always say in this channel, we do not promote any malicious activity. We do this strictly for educational purposes. If you like the video, kindly hit that like and subscribe button. If you feel that anything can be improved, if you want us to target new content for you, do make sure you comment, like on the videos that you wish us to improve on or pursue further, and we'll always appreciate your support. The channel is growing. Thank you.